Shakeup at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Hope Hicks will leave her post as White House Communications Director in the next few weeks, but who will replace her? Joining me now to discuss all of this is Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary under George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Were you surprised by this, and do you think that it's just she's exhausted and she wants to go, or you think there's more to this story? What do you think?
You know, every job in the White House is a burnout job, and
Right.
I think in the Trump White House, you burn out a whole lot faster. So no, it's not a surprise to me. It's ultimately going to happen to every single person there, except for two of them, and those two are going to be Donald Trump and Mike Pence. They can't leave.
Yeah. Although, I mean, there have been two things recently. I mean, the Rob Portman incident, you know, when they were trying to track how was it possible that nobody knew about this, and you know, John Kelly said he didn't get all the details, and we never really heard the whole story on that. Could this be related to that?
It might be. You know, it's guesswork. It's probably informed guesswork, but I still think the fundamental issue is everybody there is and should be exhausted. They're grueling, difficult, burnout jobs, all of them, and particularly in the Trump White House.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's going to happen to everybody. Is there an event that triggers it, that makes somebody say, you know, the issue I've been really pondering for months, yeah, now I'm ready. Now I'm done. Everybody has their trigger moment. That might have been it. I don't know.
Yeah. In terms of replacements, so if you look at the makeup of the people that, I mean, because she was a Trump whisperer. Everybody says she was a good interpreter of what was going on. You know, she was someone that was able to understand him, interpret him to other people, and also be, it seemed like from the outside, an influence on him. It seems like women and generals have the most luck with him. That's sort of the people that he ends up, you know, having success with over time. Who do you think would be a good replacement? A lot of people saying Mercedes Schlapp. I mean, she's very even-keeled. She's, you know, reminds me of a lot of the people that have had success with him. What do you think?
But one other thing about Hope, she genuinely really believes in Donald Trump and finds him to be a wonderful, compassionate man. And don't sell that short. That helps an awful lot with a relationship with your boss, in the case of the president. Look, I think there are a number of good names to be the mechanical communications director. I don't think anybody's going to replace her influence with Donald Trump because of their closeness and because of how she could say things to him others couldn't, and he'd listen to her.
Yeah.
But the White House still needs somebody to plan rollouts, to do the future planning and integrate it with communications. It's not as effective in this White House because of the president's technique, the president's style. Look, I think we saw that today, where the president just winged it in response to a question and gave the answer to what the steel tariffs were going to be before anybody in the White House or the Commerce Department or any agency was ready for it. I think the president just did it to box everybody in, so now it's done. That's his style. He drives communications. Communications director, and it could be any number of names from inside or outside. I'm not going to pretend to guess who they are, Melissa, because I don't know, and the only people who do know are the people making the hiring decisions. So we'll see who it is.
All right, let me ask you a question about that, because you did mention that he threw out this steel tax thing. He hadn't talked to anybody about it. No one expected it. You know, it was a tariff, something that just came through. I had thought a long time ago during the campaign that these idea of a trade war and these threats of the tariffs were actually about trying to pressure China to do something about North Korea. And now the Olympics are over. We've hit that point where trying to get North Korea under control in so many different ways and pushing China to do it for us hasn't really worked. Could this be about that, do you think? Is there any chance?
To a minor degree. I think this is simple. This is Donald Trump trying to help blue-collar workers in America. Whether it will help them or not is a totally different issue. But I think that's what drives Donald Trump. He looks at things from a very different point of view. Economists hate this idea. Experts hate the idea. Many people inside the administration hate it. But there is a school of thought that says you have to put blue-collar, working-class, struggling Americans first. And that's what Donald Trump has always been about, what he's tried to do. So I think it has a lot more to do with the domestic economy and whose side he's on when he says America first. He thinks of old-fashioned steel mill jobs. So I think that's what drove it, Melissa.
Okay.
Frustration with China certainly could be a part of it, but it's secondary.
Yeah, that could be like the cherry on top of the decision.